In the beginning, there was
the Bitchspot Report. Welcome to the Bitchspot Report, the conservative atheist podcast that's not afraid to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Every week, your hosts, Cephas and Mike, will take on the latest religious and political news and examine the world around us from a distinctly conservative and skeptical perspective. Join us now for this episode of the Bitchspot Report. Geez, we're getting old. This is episode 50 of the Bitchspot Report podcast, the weekly conservative atheist podcast that yells at the religious and liberals to get off our lawn. I'm your host, Cephas, and with me, of course, is Mike, and we're gonna do something, but I just don't remember what the hell it is. We're old, deal with it. So how's it going?
It's going pretty good. Dealing with the snow, it's been, I'm beat. I'm really beat today, so, just from trying to get around and I don't know. So this should be fun.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Yeah, I was realizing that the podcast actually started 1 year ago this week. So it's been one whole year that we've been making episodes. We're actually like 2 weeks off because I had to take like a quick break in there when it was missing a co-host. Right. But otherwise, we've been pretty much every single week for the entire first year. I think that's pretty good.
That's pretty damn good, yeah.
Yeah, most people don't do that. They take breaks, and we don't do that.
Well, I don't have a life, so I mean, I don't know what your excuse is.
I'm crazy. So, did you see the Nye ham debate last night?
Oh, God, yeah. That was impressive I don't know what to think about it, to be honest. The way it was structured, I think it played well to Ham because if I remember the structure right, each had a 15-minute opening introduction. Then they go into a 30-minute, stating their case. Then there was like this 20-minute, like a discussion / rebuttal period. And Ham went first. He pulled all the typical creationists and really didn't say anything. Even in his 30 minutes, he tried to rely upon other scientists and he always kept bringing up the guy that I don't remember the guy's name. He invented the MRI, but he's a creationist. Okay,
what does that have to do with anything?
Yeah, it was that kind of stuff. It's that, that typical, argument from authority that here we've got these noted scientists who are doing science, but they're creationists. And I'm like, okay, well, what be? Anybody could do good science. It's just as long as that's, religion and your religion isn't biasing you in your science. I mean, that's my feeling. I mean, you could be whatever you want to be. You could be a Buddhist, Pastafarian, fundamental nutcase Christian. You could still do good science. But anyhow.
Yeah. Well, I didn't watch it because I knew I would just want to punch my damn monitor anyway. But I was kind of sitting at the computer while it was going on, and of course, the whole Twitterverse kind of exploded. So I got to kind of watch what was going on without having to watch Ken Ham being an asshole. Right. And I think it's funny that if you go back and look at the polling that was done afterwards, Bill Nye won by like 92% to 8%. Everybody hated Ken Ham. Everybody thought he was a complete fuck up. And he even came back afterwards and he kind of did a wrap up afterwards and he even admits he screwed up.
Definitely. And that's why I said, cause Nye, he had answers. I mean, he had real facts. And what was interesting, cause he brought up like the ice cores, samples, where you could tell, there's the yearly deposit of snow and they've got these ice cores going back 800,000 years. There's a living tree that is 9,000 years old. How can you account for this in a 6,000 year literal biblical creation story? Even setting the ice aside, because one of Ken Ham was always attacking was because we weren't there, we don't know what really happened. Okay, well, we've got a living tree. This tree is alive and it's 9,000 years old. How do you explain that away, Mr. Ken Ham?
He does. He can't.
And he didn't.
Well, yeah, and the funniest thing is he's going, were you there? Okay. Were you there at creation? Were you there at the birth of Jesus? Were you there at any of these things that you seem to think happened? No? Shut the fuck up.
Yeah. And that's that's what I wanted. I was hoping Nye would do something, but see, Nye was being a nice guy and he didn't call him out on that. That was maybe what I was disappointed about Nye, is that he didn't press him on the tree rings or the fact that, using Ham's argument against him, because Ham, every time he turned around and when there's an area in science we don't know, he says, well, yeah, there is a book written about it, and he waved his Bible around. And it's like, no, that's not a scientific document, And like I said, but Nye never pressed him on, if it was me, he says, Mr. Ham, why won't you answer the question? We've got a 9,000-year-old tree in a 6,000-year world. Explain that to me, and Ham just even completely ignored it. He did kind of attack the ice core, and cause you kind of can do that. It's not a living thing, but a living tree, 9,000 years, that's the nail in the coffin to me. And that should have been, if any theist or, fundamental Christian, any type of Christian, who believes in young earth creationism, you got a tree that's disproving you flat out. There's, it's a fact. And just the, Ham's attitude, well, my book says this, so this is the truth. Yeah, well,
fuck you and your book.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I thought the funny one, that I saw go by on Twitter was, I guess they asked both of them what it would take to change their minds.
Yeah.
And Bill Nye says evidence and Ken Ham says nothing. There's no way I will ever change my mind. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, pretty much. That was it.
Yeah, you're a dick, fucker. I mean, this is why I don't go up and do these debates anymore, because it gets to me to the point where I would just go, you're a fucking idiot. Jesus, you cannot be this fucking stupid. Yeah. I would not be able to hold back anymore. I really wouldn't, because these people are just too stupid to live.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, but definitely being at the Creation Museum at the beginning of the Google video, because that's how I watched it. There was an advert for the Creation Museum, and there was like a discount for anyone under, so I think 12. Under 12 can get in free. And of course at the end was, you can go to this, I don't know if it's one of his sites, but you can buy the video. So there was definitely here's my handout, please buy my shit, type of thing. So that was there. But I was trying to find some comments. I mean, there was definitely, just the lone wolf types who are saying, Ken Ham is God, or Ken Ham, he knows his stuff. And, there was that, I think, I forget what site it was, but there's 20, questions for evolutionists from creationists and, that kind of little stuff. But, the only really critical of Nye I saw was from WorldNet Daily, which is a conservative or neo whatever, and really claiming that Bill Nye was just overwhelmed by Ham. And it's like, what were you watching?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it was just, but like I said, 92% gave it to Nye. So he performed a lot better than I thought he would. I mean, I kind of thought that, Ken Ham was going to go and do a Gish Gallop and just try to overwhelm him, but he apparently didn't, because apparently Ken Ham is an idiot.
Yeah. I mean, Nye had his facts and had really strong facts. Now, he didn't press him. That's my only criticism. He did not press Ham on any of these issues. He didn't press him on the, what would change your mind question. He just let it go.
I would go, I'd be all over his ass.
Right.
Dude, what's going to change your mind? Because if nothing will change your mind, there's no point to having this debate, because, you're not honest with your facts.
Right. Yeah. And, like with the tree rings, on occasion I would like Mr. Ham's answer to this, Ham would not answer. He would not respond to anything that Nye would, challenge him on. But then Nye never really challenged him on any of the really good stuff. So I do have mixed feelings. Nye definitely had his facts together, and most of Ham's stuff he relied heavily on other people's work and trying to make it sound like that there's a consensus that there are scientists who back his creation view. But you know what? He admits that some of these guys work for him. So no shit, they're going to follow it. The boss says this, I'm going to say, yeah, I believe in creation. I mean, I don't want to lose my paycheck.
Yeah, well, these people aren't very bright to begin with, so. I'm glad that it went better than I thought. I still think it was stupid to have a debate anyway. I hope nobody ever has a debate again, because this whole thing is just asinine. You don't determine reality by popular vote. It doesn't matter, two idiots jumping around on a stage. That doesn't actually solve anything. Evidence solves things.
Yeah, science isn't popular vote. I mean, it's just who makes the better argument. I mean, Ham, I think I kind of respect him. I think he needs to do this to make his argument stronger, is to separate the observational science from the historical science. He was always doing that. There's science that you observe. You go into a lab, you grab a test tube, you put your chemical, whatever you're doing in there, you look at it, it does this, you write it down, observational. There's the historical side, and then this would be like things like rock layers and archaeological work, where you try to ascertain, you try to get a kind of an answer. It's almost like, and that's when it comes into this radiocarbon dating, and this is why he attacks that part. Okay, radiocarbon dating. I was just listening to a lecture. I think the carbon. This one lecture, the guy just said, carbon 12, carbon 14 dating is good, plus or minus 50 years. But creationists and Ham will argue that this is unreliable. We cannot say that, for certain, not realizing you can say between, 100-year span that this event happened, plus or minus 50 years. That's his wedge, I guess. His wedge to get in and say various dating methods, they're not as solid as actually physically observing. And that's what I got from him. And he is kind of right on that point. But if he really understood the dating methods, we've got a really good plus or minus 50 years. If you date a relic to, I mean, again, I'm going through this lecture on, South American, pre-Columbian, civilizations. They've got, some of the sites there, they've got really good dating, and they've dated some of these sites to 9,000, 10,000 years. Having that, now some sites it could be plus or minus, I think a couple thousand years. It's like he has to cite that, okay, well, the reason why there's the bigger gap is that not enough material has come out of that site that has been dated to narrow down the actual dates. And, there's all this stuff, matching pottery. I've been doing the Audible great lectures. I've just been through a history one. Now I'm doing South American cultures, or South American, pre-Columbian. But yeah, he attacks this dating aspect as if, by doing that, now you're not really sure. Are you looking at something millions of years versus thousands of years? He's trying to create a misconception on what we understand time periods and what, that type of thing, cause Nye mentioned the, stars that we're seeing light from 10,000, or billions of years away, and, how can you explain that if the universe was created 6,000 years? I mean, it's that type of stuff, but then he pulls these, we don't know, we never seen the light go that length of time. I'm like,
that's irrelevant.
Yeah, it's the head slap, it's like, okay, speed of light is constant, it's demonstratable, we know all this stuff, we triangulate these stars, we know that they're out there, where they're at, we got a good idea how far away they are, so 6,000 light years, 1 million light years away. We got a good idea. That's light that has traveled 10 million years. How can that happen when your universe is only 6,000 years?
Yeah, well, the real reason he's doing it is because the audience that he's targeting are generally stupid and don't know how it works.
Right.
So he can just kind of make shit up and then say, hey, see, this doesn't work because I made this shit up about how it doesn't work. If Bill Nye or whoever had time to sit down with all these people and say, here's how it works, here's how we know it works, here's how this whole thing works out. This is why the Gish Gallop works, because they're able to just throw out a whole bunch of bullshit, and it takes the scientist a long time to actually dispel the bullshit, and they just don't have enough time.
Right.
I'd be happy if they would go out and say, okay, every damn thing that comes out of your mouth, the other side has as much time as they want to refute it. So go ahead and make up all the crap you want. We may be here all week, but fuck you, dude. Yeah. We are going to cover this material. But of course, they'd never have debates that way because it would prove how dishonest they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My only disappointment was, Yet Nye wasn't as aggressive as I'd like him to be, and the way they structured it, the time frames, it didn't really allow, in a way, I don't think it allowed Nye to be more aggressive. That's my only criticism of the debate.
Yeah, well, I still think Nye should have just said, dude, you're a hypocritical, dishonest asshole. We're done here. Give everybody their money back.
Yeah. That would have been perfect.
That would have been great. Yeah. But, that's not going to happen.
Right.
All right, well, let's go ahead and do some news. And now the news.
The ACLU in Louisiana has filed a federal lawsuit against the Negrete High School in Louisiana after it turns out that one of their 6th grade teachers, a woman by the name of Rita Rourke, refuses to teach about evolution or the Big Bang Theory. Instead, she likes to teach about creationism. Keep in mind that this is a public school, and it's also being accused of discriminating against a Buddhist student who is going by the name CC. We don't know his or her true identity. Now, the ACLU says that the school has a long-standing custom, policy, and practice of promoting and including Christian beliefs. And among the many things that are taught by this 6th grade teacher, she also says that the universe was created by God about 6,000 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And she also says that the Big Bang Theory and evolution are false.
No, those are facts that you should teach kids.
No. It gets better, though, Cenk. It gets better.
I love the nice.
She allegedly told the students, if evolution was real, it would still be happening. Apes would be turning into humans today.
I'm glad she's teaching the next generation of Americans. Okay. She really thinks that an ape would be like, ooh, wait a minute.
She's teaching 6th graders.
Jesus.
That's insane. She also had this one quiz to the students that said the following. Isn't it amazing the blank has made, or what the blank has made, with like 1 million exclamation marks, and of course the correct answer is Lord.
This story is so awful, I just don't know where to start. In the Sabine Parish School District in Louisiana, you've got teachers going completely out of their gourds. They're openly teaching creationism in their classrooms, they're offering extra credit for writing Bible verses on tests, and they're openly attacking non-Christian children because God doesn't want it to be that way. Scott and Sharon Lane and their child Cece have filed a lawsuit with the ACLU which alleges that the teacher have called their son, a Buddhist, up in front of the class, told kids that he was evil and going to hell and nobody should be his friend, and if he and his parents don't like it, they should get the hell out of Louisiana because Buddhism is stupid. This is just a fucking lawsuit waiting to be won.
Definitely.
Oh my God, these people are just stupid.
No, they're not stupid. They're ignorant. They're ignorant fucks. And to forgive and forget Christians, he without sin cast the first stone. God is love.
Oh, they don't listen to that stuff. They only listen to the stuff that supports their side.
Apparently it just applies to other Christians.
Yeah, I guess.
It's like, oh God, it's ignorant. I mean, they're not stupid. They're ignorant. They're ignorant fucks. And I don't know where's this at?
Louisiana.
Well, I know Louisiana, but is it, well, I'm trying to think if there's north, south. I mean, are we talking the middle of the swamp? Man, I don't know. But it sounds like these are people that they go to school in the morning and then go out and kill alligators in the evening. I don't know.
Yeah, that could explain it. You never know.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly this kid's gonna win a ton of money in the lawsuit because there's no justification they could possibly give for anything the school district is doing, alright? Every damn teacher in the school, every administrator, every school board member needs to get terminated on the spot. They all need to get thrown out. The guy who dragged this kid up in front of the classroom was the head of the fucking school board.
Oh, these people are gonna have a nice little school building for their new home. No, they can take that whole district for every penny they got. I mean, if it's the entire school, and if that's what it sounds like. I mean, they have tests. I like this, work. Also regularly features religious questions on her tests such as, isn't it amazing what the blank has made? I'm like, well, one, why couldn't I had a teacher do that? I could have aced every fucking test. But you know what? I mean, I don't know what class this is for. I mean, is this for a science class, a English, math class? I mean, This is not a question for any type of class that you would be teaching in a public school. And, oh my God, it's like, even on top of it, I mean, this is in print. This isn't just like, what one teacher said versus what a kid says. This is on the tests. This is stuff that these kids are getting graded on. I mean, the ACLU's probably, I hope they've subpoenaed all this paper and showed the judge, every one of these tests have questions like this. Here's one. Boom. This is going to be a school board that's going to probably be paying for the rest of their lives.
Well, the school board doesn't pay for it. They don't care. It's the taxpayers. The taxpayers want this.
Right.
This is the middle of buttfuck Louisiana. And it gets even worse when you look at it. I mean, they had a big picture of Jesus on the digital marquee in front of the school. And they had scrolling Bible verses. Do these people have no fucking clue what the separation of church and state means?
Apparently they can't even read. So
well, probably not. This is Louisiana.
Yeah.
But seriously, the problem is, even when the ACLU, and this is not if, when the ACLU wins this case, that's not going to stop these people. Because these people have already proven they don't give a shit.
Pretty much. Yeah.
What this really needs to do is it needs to get into a federal court. And I'm not sure how they're going to do that because it's going to be so easy to win this in the local courts. But if it goes to a federal court, they need to get a federal magistrate out there to watch everything and fix the schools. Basically say, guys, you're done. You're all fired. Everybody's done. Fuck the people in the parish. You're all done. We're going to make this the way the Constitution fucking demands that it is. No more religion in the school. No more Bible. No more Jesus. No more shit. You're all fucking going away.
Well, this is definitely in federal court. This isn't local. This is going to be in federal. So as long as if this high school appeals, this could be a good go. I would hope that this gets into a courtroom, this gets into a appellate, and then it'd be nice if this can get into a Supreme Court situation. Probably not, but,
I don't think the Supremes have the balls to hear it.
No, that's what I mean. It might go that route, but they'll probably turn it down so fast you wouldn't even notice it. All I know is that this district, they're gonna lose. I mean, they're gonna lose. It'd be nice if they would appeal and get into the Supreme Court, but I doubt it, and more than likely insurance will pick up the tab and the taxpayers are going to foot the bill for the bad insurance rating and all that kind of stuff. And then within a year, they'll probably be back in court because of another kid that they messed with.
Yeah, well, I mean, unfortunately, this kind of crap happens all the time, and that these religious fucktards are going to turn right around and say, see, we're justified in this because they hate us.
Yeah.
No, you're dicks.
Yeah. That standard argument, that the world's picking on us. Like, fuck you. You picked on the world up for 1,500 years. It's about time you got your comeuppance.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but Christianity doesn't have the power to be dicks. You guys have got to get over yourselves. And, this is Louisiana. It's not going to change anything. All these southern states, we just need to go in and nuke them all from orbit. It's the only way to be sure.
You're right.
Well, why don't you go do your next story?
Yeah, speaking of dicks, I gotta do a dick.
Gotta do a dick joke. You gotta do a dick joke.
Yeah. And this is a really bad one because we've got another Jewish infant in New York contracts herpes during an ultra-Orthodox bris featuring mouth-to-penis contact. Why?
Because the rabbis like them some dick.
Apparently. I mean, it's like, in any other place this would be, child molesting. I mean, I'm amazed the picture they got here. They got the moil. I think that's what they call them, right?
Yeah.
The moils, with his mouth on the baby's, genitalia. I don't know what the purpose is. Now this kid has herpes, something that he's got to live with for the rest of his life. I mean,
yeah.
Don't anybody, other than us. I mean, we see this and we scream, what the fuck? You want to reach through the computer screen or the TV screen and you want to punch this guy. Why isn't these, the Jews? Why isn't the Catholics? Why all of them that are doing this stuff just say, why are you doing this? It's like, and I don't even know why they do this. I mean, if it's part of the procedure, is this, part of the ritual? You got to do this. I mean, like, I just don't get it. I just really don't get it. And like you're spreading this virus, this disease to an infant who's now got to spend the rest of his life trying to manage this condition. It just does not make sense to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, this has been going on for a very, very long time. About a year ago, we reported on New York had proposed a law whereby parents had to sign a release to get this done, stating that they understood all the risks, etc. And all the fucking rabbis shit their pants because, holy shit, somebody should actually have to sign a release and prove that they acknowledge this stuff. And so the fuckers in New York were just running around going, well, any laws that you pass about our rituals, we're just going to ignore them and you can all go fucking screw yourselves. And we're going to do whatever we want because we're Jews. Well, fuck the Jews,
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about this before. We've got 13 cases so far at least of herpes since the year 2000. So about a case a year because these guys are giving babies blowjobs. There was that recent story they did about the rabbi who accidentally cut off the baby's penis while he was doing the bris.
Yeah.
It's like, dude. And the guy, nothing happens to him. Nothing happens to him. These are fucking unregistered, unlicensed people performing medical procedures that they have no training for at all. And they're just being, they've got like some group religious group that certifies them. Certifies them how? These people have no medical malpractice insurance. They have nothing. They got a knife and they got their mouth and then they slice things off of babies. And we think this is a good thing. How?
And just reading the article, I mean, this is the third in 2 years. I mean, I don't even know where to go on with this. I mean, that argument, it's part of the culture, it's part of the religion. It's like,
fuck the culture and fuck the religion.
Yeah, there's something wrong here. This is supposed to be, if I'm understanding why they do this, it's because it's a sanitation, some type of cleanliness thing to do this procedure, but you're kind of defeating the point here. You're doing this. I'm trying to remember now cause I just went through this on religions. Again, my head's being poured. I got so much stuff pouring in my head right now from, these courses that, much of the Jewish faith was initially structured before it really became Jewish, the Hebrew, that there was this heavy thing on cleanliness, clean food, clean clothes, and it does prevail even to today that there's, I think some of those, attacks in Israel where these, ultra-Orthodox Jews in Israel are attacking women because for whatever, what is it? Because they sit in the wrong, whatever they do wrong, and these guys freak out, that these women are dirty. I don't know what it is, but there's like this cleanliness thing, going on. But you know what? This is, you're doing this procedure that's supposed to be a cleansing operation, but then you just end up passing a disease on to this kid. I think it's time you kind of rethink what you're doing here.
Well, that assumes that they think anyway. There's no thinking involved in all this. This is just, we've been doing this for a long, long time and we want to keep doing it. Guys, if you want cleanliness, sticking a bleeding dick in your mouth is not the best idea. I'm sorry.
Yeah, definitely. I'm probably way off, but it does seem like, these guys gotta start rethinking. I mean, all of them. If you're going to try to remain relevant in a modern time,
they don't care about being relevant. That's the problem, and it.
They got to at least stop this shit. I mean,
they won't.
And they won't
until they are forced to by law and put in prison. And even then, they'll still be doing it because these people don't think. It's just they react to their religious bullshit and they don't think about what they're doing, about how stupid any of it is. Even outside of Judaism, there are religious doctors in America, in religious hospitals that push circumcision on people who don't even want it and who aren't even religious. I heard from a couple of people that there are passages in some of the paperwork that you go into when you go in to give birth in these hospitals, where you automatically give permission for these doctors to go whacking their dicks off. They don't ask you about it. They don't specifically ask you to sign for it. They don't tell you about it. It's just in the paperwork, and if you don't read every damn thing in that paperwork, you are giving them license to whack your son's dick off. Because that's what their religion wants. Not yours. They don't give a fuck about you. They want to go around and circumcise people because that's what the fuck their religion does. And, I mean, this shit has got to stop.
I don't know what it would take to even, I mean, again, reading this article, it's like these rabbis are saying, well, if you're making it illegal, we'll just keep doing it and we just won't tell anybody. It's like, it's just insane. I would love to see this, I don't know if it is, is it considered a medical procedure and in terms of a recognized surgical, what I'm trying to get at it though is that, if this is a procedure, if a hospital's doing that they would need to get informed consent to that procedure. And if you're signing a paper without them explaining the possible, side effects, if there's any, dangers or is there a danger of death, disease, whatever it is, if circumcision isn't classified if it's classified as some type of religious procedure as opposed to a medical procedure, they can get away with anything. It's all that First Amendment crap. But if it's classified as a medical procedure that requires informed consent, then at least the parents would realize that this is what they're going to do. They can deny consent. Now, of course, then you got the old who knows what kind of legal. I think we've talked about this, about, was it the abortions in Michigan or the non-abortion, whatever, that kind of stuff. Even with the lady on, life support in Texas, there's that whole hospital kept her on life support claiming that the baby was, that they couldn't pull it because of the baby, which was already dead and legally they could pull the plug on this. But they claimed that state law, they claimed all this law that they couldn't do it. Well, they didn't want to do it because it violated some kind of fucking religious bullshit, So
yeah, now they're trying to get the husband or his insurance company to pay the bills for all the time they kept her alive against his will.
Yeah. Someone's got to have to wake up and say, we can't do this. You're doctors. You're supposed to preserve life. You're supposed to respect life. And there's a time where there's not much more you can do. Let the person go. There's a thing called human decency. And you know what? Maybe I shouldn't be blaming the doctors because it could be, you go to a state like Texas, who probably has fucked up laws like that where you do these procedures or you have to, or you don't have to because it violates whatever, because it's based on religion. It's like, I know there are doctors who they will not perform abortions. Hey, that's fine. I think, if the woman wants the abortion, she finds a doctor who will give it to her. That should be a legal prerogative. If this doctor lies to the patient and says, well, you can't do it or whatever, then that doctor is just really violating even just being a human and being a decent human.
Yeah, well, the religious are not necessarily decent humans, so.
Well, their only authority is God and, bullshit.
Yes, please, let's not go through that bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am so sick and tired of the religious fucks who think they get to override the law. They get to ignore what anybody says. They get to do whatever the fuck they want because they've got God on their side or whatever. These people need to be slapped down hard. I would love to see every damn rabbi who does this shit in New York. I'd like to see them all thrown in prison. So, okay. Or I'd like to see the state of New York pass a law that says that doing this procedure, regardless of your religious beliefs, is punishable by up to 50 years in prison. And then start throwing people in there and see how long it lasts. Because I'm willing to bet after you throw the first 10 or 12 in prison, it's going to kind of go away.
Yeah, you would hope that, unless they decide to get a lawyer and say, well, you're violating our, and then it would be nice to at least, you're performing a medical procedure without a license.
You'd better damn well be a doctor.
Yeah.
And fuck your religion.
Yeah.
I don't know. All right, you want to move on?
Let's move on.
Okay, because this one's even worse.
The winners in this conflict, delirious with victory. The Christians were victims, now they're on top. It's a dangerous time to be Muslim. A charred and dismembered body is dragged through the streets. Christians have just killed a Muslim passerby. Wanja, Mad Dog Magloire, was at the head of the mob. He was in a blind fury that day. Muslims killed his pregnant wife, his sister-in-law, her baby, he tells me. They broke down the door and cut the baby in half. I promised I'd get my revenge. Revenge was an act of cannibalism. First, he stabbed his victim. You are Muslim, 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 he said. I poured petrol over him. I burned him. I ate his leg, right down to the white bone.
These just get worse and worse. Why is that?
I don't know. It's human nature. It's humans. I mean, the crazy shit we do to each other, you know, because some mythical creature tells us we're supposed to do that.
Yeah, well. All right. I guess we're getting away from our no religious horrors pledge this week. In fact, in the Central African Republic, an ardent Christian named Mad Dog, which is a very appropriate name, attacked a man he identified as Islamic on a bus because he blamed Muslims for killing his pregnant wife, sister-in-law, and her baby. He and a gang of 20 Christians dragged the man off the bus and beat him to death on the street and then set him on fire. Then Mad Dog is seen in a video eating the man's leg raw. There is actually a couple of other people who actually started pulling parts off this guy and eating them too. Now, this is another case of Christianity in Africa being combined with witchcraft. Many Christian fighters believe in magic, including wearing and ingesting the flesh of their victims and wearing their body parts and jewelry to grant them invincibility. Holy fuck. I mean, this is not just like, ew. This is like, ew.
I mean, they set the guy on fire. Let him cook before you eat him, at least. Come on.
Oh, Jesus, this is just horrible.
I know. And again, it goes back to this. Where in the fucking Bible does it say you drag a guy off the bus, beat him to death, set him on fire, and then eat him? Which is that in Leviticus somewhere? You know?
I don't know. Well, I mean, there's lots of people who are like blaming tribalism and the reliance on religion, especially primitive religions, on a lot of the major problems in Africa. This guy wanted to steal this guy's soul by devouring his flesh. That's not Christianity. That's witchcraft bullshit. But let's be honest. A lot of the Christians in Africa, they're into witchcraft. Same thing with the Muslims. They're into witchcraft. I mean, we can even see, what was it? There was a case in Syria where a Muslim cut out an enemy's heart and ate it because he wanted to take the guy's power. How can anybody defend this shit? Anybody on the planet. You know, Jesus, let's go out and just kill everybody in Africa. You know, yeah. I mean, kill all of these religious fucktards. There's got to be a point in time where we say, this is just too damn stupid to continue, and we are going to stop it with your death if necessary. Fuck you people, you're done.
I would love to see that. I would love to see somebody just saying, okay, enough's enough. I mean, this is stupid. And literally anybody, I would drag guys, I mean, I would actually drag guys like Pat Robertson, Ken Ham, Ray Comfort, Kirk Cameron, and put them in the same jail cell as these guys. Like almost to a point where it's racist. I mean, it's like whatever that guy was he from Nigeria? Forget where it was. He came here, was coming to the States to do a thing about, do a talk, and I think he got kind of shut down. Just start grabbing these people, putting them in jail for even promoting this craziness. Lock them up. I don't know what to do with them. Maybe
light them on fire.
Light them on fire. Yeah.
Have a barbecue.
Yeah. Grab this cannibal guy. Let him have a feast or whatever. anyone who promotes this, I mean, even the Pope should go into prison because, I mean, they promote this insanity. I mean, I bet you, well, Pat Robertson, definitely. He would probably even think it's okay, good Christians fighting the Muslims, and he would use that kind of shit. It's like, no, you dumb fuck. I mean, I just saw a few days ago, I saw something about Pat Robertson. It's like, dude, I think it's time for you to retire. Maybe, your brain's not working anymore.
Was it ever?
It's definitely not now because he's totally oblivious to anything he says. He was criticizing people who's been criticizing him, that they take everything he says out of context. It's like, dude, you tell a guy to divorce his Alzheimer's wife for another woman and run off with another woman. She won't know any different. I'm like, it's that mentality, and he was defending it. I'm like, dude, you talk about this immorality. Everything's spinning right now because it's like, these people are supposed to hold these moral high grounds. They claim the moral high ground. They will argue. Ken Ham, where does logic come from? God. Where does morals come from? God. It's like, dude, your fucking people of your type is out there. They're dragging people off of buses and eating them. These people are over here cutting the hearts out of their enemies and eating it. And this is all religious based. This is the stuff you preach to your people, and they take it and they'll bomb abortion clinics. They will attack pro-abortion. They'll set off bombs wherever, it's all religion. All the violence in this world. I mean, we did an article about that. Most of the violence in this world is religious based, and it's these guys that are promoting those religions, and their people are committing these crimes.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, nothing will ever be done because the leaders of all these countries are just as big of religious wingnuts as everybody else.
If not more. It's like,
yeah.
I don't want to start using the United States as a world police force like we're pretending to be now. But
well, yeah, but we're actually causing most of it. It's the religious evangelical fucktards from here that are going over there and convincing them to be more radical and extremist.
Yeah.
It's our fault, I mean, the witchcraft isn't. That's been there for a long, long time. But, when you combine it with Christianity, that's us. Yeah. We're fucking up Africa, just like we fucked up Europe, fucked up the US, fucked up South America. We've managed to fuck up just about everybody. And if it wasn't us, it was the other world religions that are doing the same damn thing. We're fucking it all up.
Yeah.
It's our fault. We need to knock it the fuck off. And to be real honest, for shit like this, I would have absolutely no problem if we sent in a death squad to just say, you people are too fucking stupid to live. Send one to New York, send one to Africa, and just kind of like walk around and go, do you believe in eating people? Yeah? You're dead. Next, do you believe in eating people? No? Okay, you can go.
Yeah.
But something has to be done. We are never going to be able to advance the species so long as this crap is allowed to go on. And, what do you do for people who are just fucking stupid?
The only thing I can think of, and I think Adolf Hitler tried to do it, so I'm not gonna go down that route.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's gotta be a point where you just say, we need to do something. And I would try violence as the absolutely last resort. Most of the people in Africa are just fucking stupid and uneducated. That's why they go for this stuff. I would actually go in there and just say, guess what? We're taking every kid in the entire country and we're going to put them in a classroom and we're going to teach them about reality, and we're going to teach them that your stupid religious beliefs are just bullshit, and that's it. And in 2 generations, we will have completely wiped out all religion in Africa. Then we should do it everywhere. But for some of these people where they think that violence is called for by their gods, no. Dude, sorry. You failed the reality test. You need a bullet in the head. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's go on to the last, hopefully hopeful story.
Well, and this might actually be hopeful.
What was the lightning bolt that hit you that made you say, okay, I'm going to live as an atheist for a year? What was the thing that you were just like, that's it? I'm doing this.
It wasn't a lightning bolt, I guess. It was one of those things. It was almost like a drinking game. You're like, I'm going to do that for a year. I wasn't quite that flippant, but I was at lunch with a friend and I had a book in my hand called Religion Without God by a philosopher named Ronald Dworkin. And, set it down, went to the bathroom, came back, and he was looking at my book, and he's like, what is this? And I said, it's just a book I wanted to read. And he's like, that's really interesting. I'd like to, look at that. And I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking of, just giving up on God for a year. And I said it kind of like,
and it just came out of nowhere.
It kind of came out of nowhere. He's like, you should totally do that. And I was like, yeah, maybe I will, and then I said, yeah, maybe I'll do that. And, like AJ Jacobs in reverse, like we'll do a year of living without God. And then he's like, you should blog about that. And I'm like, well, I don't know if anybody's going to read that. And he's like, well, I'd read it. And I said, okay, well, maybe I will. And I got the cheapest, ugliest blog template, like just the simplest, plainest blog template for free that I could get. And,
the kind of template that Jesus would have.
The kind of, yeah, exactly. No simple, no flash, no bling, just simple, clean, pure template.
What is it that you would be giving up?
Christianity, I think, is about faith and practice, both. It's about things you believe and things that you do, and it's a performative thing. You put your faith into action. And so part of some of those actions are like praying, going to church, reading your Bible, not just to critique it, but to like learn from it and get inspiration from it. So those are the three things that I could think of that I'm like, okay, I'm not going to pray. I mean, and to people with Christian ears, to say you're not going to pray for a year, it sounds terrifying.
Pastor tries atheism, loses job, gains $19,000. This is actually a pretty nice one, though I think the way he was treated by his church, the Seventh-day Adventists. I mean, in this article, we got the link to it, so I won't go through the whole. I mean, a listener should probably read this, but it's a really nice story about explaining what the guy went through. He was a pastor. He had a decent job. He decided to try to be an atheist for a year, and he was just going to do it for a year. He wasn't going to talk about God. He wasn't going to do anything. He was going to take God out for 1 year as an experiment, and caught a lot of shit for that. Lost his job. Couldn't even keep teaching jobs. He lost 2 teaching jobs. What else did happen to him? I think that was pretty much rough time keeping his job. Keeping a job. Things like that. And he began to realize, and he began to explore life without God, and began to question what his religion was teaching him, and came to a really pretty much, I think sounds like he's come to a pretty decent conclusion that God God is not that big of a deal as it thought it was. He began to open his mind to other teachings, other ideas, philosophy, some of the other neat stuff. And, I think he really discovered, if you're on the outside, what is going to happen to you. I mean, when you leave religion, or when you start abandoning that religion, how quickly your friends turn into your enemies, and, people you trusted and so on. And, sounds like he's doing, I don't know what he's doing now. I think was he trying to teach in public schools? Or was he trying to get he's still teaching. Still trying to teach, but definitely he hasn't been able to teach in the religious schools. So, he's discovered, that he doesn't really need God. I mean, apparently he's kind of more agnostic than atheist, but he's definitely, learned seeing the ugly side of what religion will do to people who stray, and what they will do when people stray from their beliefs. And, I think this is a great story that, he did, he's telling everybody, hey, this is it. This is what he knows, what he's learned from this experience, that how fucked up religion really is, or at least his particular religion. I don't know where he's going to go with this, if he's going to be, if he finds a different one, or maybe not as radical as the Seventh-day guys.
Yeah, well, I started off way before any of this crap happened to this guy, very critical of him. There is no way to try atheism any more than you can just try Christianity. You can't pretend to accept atheism. You have to actually be convinced it's true. So he was just an idiot to even play that game. You can't just go, well, I'm just going to try Islam, or I'm just going to try Buddhism. No, you have to actually believe in it. And you can't just decide to turn on belief or turn off belief. You got to actually be convinced that this is actually factually true. So all that is ridiculous. The only thing that happened was when he was fired by his own side was he basically showed everybody that religion is absurd and irrational. That's something we've known for a long time. You can't really trust the religious. You can't really trust religions in general, because the second that you stop snorting their bullshit, they're going to turn on you and stab you in the back. This is just one more example of that. And there's lots and lots and lots of examples of that out there. I think this guy is a perfect example of somebody who needs to be in the clergy project. You know, the people who have left religion, who are stuck in the clergy and now have to be trained for something outside of babbling religious bullshit on Sunday mornings. This guy probably would fit in very well there. Plus the fact, you know, atheists got this guy $19,000 to keep him going.
Yeah.
What the fuck did his church do? Not a damn thing. It was the atheists who were nice to him.
Yeah.
You know? Granted, this guy was better than most of them. It says he wanted to allow gay church leaders. He was against anti-gay laws. He was pro-gay marriage, all that other stuff. So at least he wasn't a complete religious douchebag. And you're probably right. He probably never really believed, or at least he didn't believe recently. It sounds to me like he was somebody on the way out of religion anyway when this crap happened. And it's probably the best thing that could happen to him.
Yeah. And happening it this way, that the church treated him like shit. I think what helps, and this is just me, because I never broke away from a church. I was never in the first place. For a lot of people, church was their support system. This is part of church is ingrained. It's ingrained in their lives. It's an important aspect. I don't know if faith is the right word, but but there is definitely trust. You've placed trust in these church leaders. Even your parents. I don't think you join a church because, oh, that one looks cool, or that one, hey, they got cool beards or whatever. You don't choose it like that. It's more than likely your parents have been taking you to the same building day after day, weekends, whatever the arrangement is, when you go to church. So you've built up there's a comfort level, there's a level of, trust, trust in the pastor or whatever, whoever's leading your congregation. There's people within, when you go through the rituals that you go through, I didn't go through too many in the Catholic, church. I just did the first communion and almost did a confirmation, but I never made it that far. But there's people who teach you all this stuff, and you learn all the rituals, all the words, all the prayers, all the stuff that goes along with it. And these are usually older people. So if you're a kid, you're kind of told to trust adults, and adults being these authority figures and so on. And then only to find out that when you decide, well, I don't believe in God, or I don't believe in this. Like I said, I came to the conclusion, I said, I don't need to talk to a priest about this. My biggest issue with Catholicism was original sin. I just never could understand that concept in the Catholic Church, that you're born a sinner and then you gotta grovel and, fight to prove that you're not a sinner. I don't see where that comes from. Why being born makes you a sinner? That never made sense to me. It will never make sense to me. As you're breaking away from all that, you would think that these people would like to keep you in and try to tell you, well, no, you're just going through a crisis of faith, or you're doing whatever. But these guys just said, well, fuck you. The guy started questioning the stand on gay marriage and all that kind of stuff, and realizing these people were like, oh no, because, God says this. Well, there's nothing in the Bible says this. You could play around with Leviticus a little bit, and you could play around with these passages, but there's really nothing there. Learning it that way, and then realizing, well, yeah, these guys are douchebags. They weren't looking out for me. They were looking out for their church, so that they can get their monthly or their weekly tithing, so they can afford to, keep the lights on that month, or whatever the argument is, whatever they need your money for. So when you start learning that, when they took the attitude that they did, it's like, then you start realizing, well, yeah, I'm beginning to really doubt that I wasn't following it for the right reasons. Or, wait a minute, this is all fucked up. There's nothing about God in this church, type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. And it's nice now because he was working in a lot of religious colleges and universities. And I think it's nice that he's going to go out now and find out that there's a whole ton of secular universities out there who are probably going to be happy to hire him, and they're not going to stab him in the back like his former employers.
Right.
This is a great object lesson of what happens when you rely on religion.
Yeah.
Because religion will fuck you up. And that sounds like a good way to get into the main event.
Let's do a main event. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is the main event.
All right, seriously, this is starting to get to me. You know, I can't tell you how many people I run into who claim to be rational, who say that they're atheists, who claim to respect logic and critical thinking, but the second you step away from debates on religion, these people are just as irrational, illogical, and ridiculous in their other beliefs as the religious are. You know, we've talked about this before with regard to, like, Atheism Plus, which we don't want to talk about. But there's just so many people who say, oh, look, I have the rational high ground, and now I'm going to talk to you about ghosts and goblins and UFOs and Bigfoot and all this other shit. And you're going, wait a minute, what the fuck just happened? Weren't we just talking about being rational and critical and looking for evidence? What the fuck is wrong with you people?
Yeah. It's interesting because it does amaze me. I mean, on the conspiracy side, how some people will embrace, like I'm doing 9/11, the 9/11 shows, and how they'll embrace the idea of, you know, the government's doing this, and the owner of the World Trade Center did this, and, you know, they will happily believe things like that, but then they may turn around and says, well, there's no Bigfoot, or they'll say, Oswald was the only shooter. There's like this weird, like, I mean, it's a cherry pick on what they want to believe. And seeing, I know you don't want to talk about it, so, but, you know.
Well, no, if you want to, go ahead. In general, we don't talk about that shit on the show, but.
Yeah, I just won't use names, or try not to use names. But, you know, cause, we all have different mindsets. We have our own, we do a atheist conservative show. I mean, or atheist with a conservative bent to it. I mean, and I think we do a pretty good job keeping that separate. I mean, we're atheists and we're conservatives. Sometimes, you know, and I guess in a nice way, we're saying, you know, here's our biases. You know, this is our bias. We're conservative. We're atheists. And, there's definitely atheists and liberals. There are theists and liberals. There are theists and conservatives. There's the religion column and political column. You name a religion, you name a political view, there's probably a group out there who follows that. One from column A, one from column B, put them together. Oh yeah, that's that bunch over there. That's the way humans are. That's the way we are. We have our beliefs, our feelings. This is way where we're put together. And, I think it's even ingrained in how our brain is wired. Again, I just finished reading a book on, rational minds and how they, you know, it's, how they function and stuff like that. I don't have all the details, but it's, cause in there it was interesting that, you know, we will, as we grow up, we add as each new experience in our lives, we will add, you know, there's a religion layer, there is a politics layer, there is a, you know, whatever layers, and these get built up, and we may even be genetically predisposed to be conservative or liberal, religious or not religious. I mean, it may be true. After reading this book, I'm like, I'm not totally convinced, but there may be some predisposition genetically to the way we think and, you know, how we perceive the world. That does probably play really heavily in our, you know, how we define our politics or our political leanings. I won't say politics. I'm thinking, you know, do we think conservative? Are we neocons? Are we liberal? Are we socialist? Whatever the way we fit. So there's always going to be someone who we may agree with perfectly, you know, as atheists, you know, fellow atheists over here, but then they want to believe something we don't believe. There's going to be definitely, you know, we're going to think, well, that's crazy. And I agree with you that, you know, we do, you know, and I like to keep my atheism separate from my skepticism, from my political views. I mean, I like to keep all that separate. That's why, you know, I do this as this is the atheist side of me. I do my other show because that's the skeptic in me. You know, trying to meld all this stuff together. I'm going to have people who disagree with me, and they will not like anything I say, even though they may agree with what I believe as an atheist. They may not agree with me from my skeptical side. And you're always going to get that. I mean, you're always going to get someone who's going to disagree with you. And trolls aside, I mean, trolls, they just want to disagree because that's what they do. They just want to disagree. But there's certainly people who they may agree with you they may be conservative, but they may have a religious view. So they may agree with you on your conservative part. They will probably fight you on the religious side. I mean, it's just the way we are. I think it's just something we're always going to get into. So dealing with rationality and logic, it probably is, it's really tough for me to even, when do you go from being an honest or a honest, dissenter to a asshole?
Well, that really has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
But I disagree with you. I think that the top level has to be skepticism. You have to be a skeptic in absolutely goddamn everything in your life. And it doesn't matter what it is, if it's religion, if it's politics, if it's whatever. The only rational way to live your life is to be a skeptic of everything. And in fact, my skepticism is what made me an atheist. My skepticism informs every aspect of my life. It made me an atheist. It made me a conservative. It makes everything that I do why I do it. I would not be anything without that skepticism. And the reason this whole thing came up this week was I had somebody tell me that he was an atheist, but that he also experienced a ghost walking through him. And so I asked him how he justified that claim, and he came up with every single argument that the religious do with regard to their religion for his ghost experience. And I'm just sitting here looking at this guy going, you're being a completely irrational idiot. You're using all the claims that you reject from the religious for this other thing that you experienced. And no, you did not have a ghost walk through you. You have no way to justify that this experience happened or that you can provide a causal link between an actual real existing ghost and what happened to you. And this kind of crap happens all the time. I'm sure you've seen it. I'm sure you've seen people who, you might think are an intelligent, rational individual who looks for evidence and who wants to think critically about things. And then they go, oh yeah, and, I believe in alien abductions, or I believe in Bigfoot, or whatever the hell. That kind of crap happens all the time. And I'm sorry, but as soon as you start doing that, no matter how much I might have respected you as an atheist, as a debater before that, if the only place in your entire life where you're a rational individual is your atheism, 99% of the rest of your life, you're an idiot. And it doesn't change anything to just say I'm an atheist and therefore I'm a rational person. No, you're rational if you exercise it, not if you claim it. And I mean, there was another case where somebody started arguing for libertarianism and natural rights and all that bullshit. And I have no respect whatsoever for those people because, again, they can't actually justify any of these claims. They've got this, idea that these rights just magically float around in the ether and they've been there since the beginning of time, just waiting for humans to evolve to accept the rights or some bullshit like that. And you talk to them and these guys are just kind of, just touchy-feely emotional nonsense crap. No, there's no touchy-feely emotional nonsense. You gotta get that shit out of your head and evolve into a rational person that looks at the world intelligently. And I don't get people who can't do that or who won't do that.
Now, I would agree with you on the ghost person. I'm having a little trouble with the libertarian one because there is a possibility. See that, again, there is a bit of hardwiring there. As far as the ghost is, it's just, this guy's just not thinking critically or he's delusional. Okay, as far as the ghost goes. But when you start getting into the political and religious, now we're dealing with, I think we're dealing with some brain wiring here. I don't know to what extent, but there seems to be something there because these are two things that are they seem to work in the same areas of the brain and how they deal with political thought, religious thought,
Oh, no. The libertarians that I'm talking about, they are convinced that these rights exist wholly outside of humanity.
Right.
It's not in the brain. It's something that exists in reality beyond humans. And even if humans never existed, even if we had never evolved, these things would have been floating around out there waiting for us.
Right. You're talking self-evident.
But they're not self-evident. They're clearly not self-evident. They're self-wishful thinking, but they're not, but they don't want to say,
but he's calling,
they want to say,
is he calling it self-evident? Is he calling it self-evident?
Of course they are.
Then that's the brain rationalizing.
Which would be fine if he would accept that it was the brain, but he doesn't accept that it has anything to do with the brain. He thinks it's like an ant walking around. Your brain does not create the ant. The ant is there with whether you have a brain or not, whether there's anybody observing it or not. He thinks that it's actually a real thing outside of the brain. And it's like, no, you have a delusion. I'm sorry.
Okay. What am I going to do with this one? Because I'm going to argue that he is, in his mind, it's been justified in his head that this is self-evident.
Yeah, but they cannot actually explain that justification. They say it's just there.
Then we're dealing with, there's a separate disconnect there. But it sounds to me like he's trying to go down the right path, but he's not, something hasn't clicked yet. Something's got to click. Somehow you got to click something in that guy's head to say, you're going to have to get him to say, well, why do you believe this is self-evident? And explain to me.
But they can't. They can't. And they say it's self-evident because it's self-evident. The same way you'll get the religious going, I have these morals because God gave them to me.
Right.
It's the exact same thing. They'll say, I believe in these rights because these rights are obviously there.
Right.
It's complete circular reasoning.
Right. But then again, that's the brain at work. It's the brain has locked in on these ideas. And until these people get the right information into their heads and it makes sense to them, then everything comes apart. I mean, then they'll realize, well, wait, oh yeah, I was fucked up. But until that happens, you're going to get this. There seems to be something, there seems like anything politic, anything religious, it is, because these are not things that, really there's nothing real world about them. And the way I mean is, religion is a construct. It's something we constructed to understand the world we live in. Politics is a construct on how we manage ourselves. It's not a real thing. You can't say, you can't go to the store and buy a gallon of politics. This is something we've created and this is in our heads. Our brains have constructed this idea of government politics. This is all a mental construct that we've used to manage ourselves. Religion is the same thing. This is a mental construct to understand the world we live in. And, so we built this world of God, whatever the manifestation of your particular religion. It's a construct. And until you can get into that construct, find the right link to break and insert rationality or something real, something, tangible. If you can insert, into the mind of a younger earth creationist that, your 6,000 year worldview, this world construct you have breaks down. If you can break it down by showing them, well, here's a 9,000 year old tree that should, or theoretically should break the construct and then should make you start thinking, well, okay, so is what's in my head really true? But
most of these people don't care if what's in their head is really true. It's all there for emotional comfort. And emotions, whether we like it or not, they just get in the way of critical thinking. People have a very strong confirmation bias. They want to feel good about their beliefs. And when they don't get that emotional rush, they claim to believe things that are just ridiculous and absurd. The same thing is true of religion, politics, and I don't want to limit it just to those two. But science is all about getting beyond that, being rational regardless of your emotional feelings. It's not about what feels good to believe. It's about what is actually true in the real world and how we get to that position of knowledge by finding evidence and following the evidence to its natural conclusion. Yeah. That's not what people want to do when it comes to religion, politics, and things of that nature.
Right. Again, I'm kind of leaning toward this, because with science, we can generate facts. We can this is how we can create our mathematics, our understanding of chemical reactions, all the different things. And now getting into the real world, this is how we let the real world in to those mental constructs that has been built. Again, this book I've read, it just talked about politics and religion, so I'm probably missing other areas of where we construct, since we're dealing with people with a political view or a religious view. To me, these are just mental constructs. By bringing science into the mix, we're bringing facts. We're bringing real world. We are bringing in, 1 + 1 = 2. That will never change no matter how hard your mental construct wants to say 1 + 1 = 3. 1 + 1 is always going to be 2. And in this real, I don't want to say reality, but yeah, we can accept, even the religious can accept 1 + 1 = 2. But, if you can show that, like the fellow with the ghost, well, maybe it was just a breeze blowing past you, or you can prove, well, did it feel like this? And you turn a fan on and point it at him, proving to him that that whatever you felt was not something metaphysical. It was real. It can be explained. Break this rationality logjam. That's the only way I can think. There is a rational world out there trying to break into our heads, but if you put up a dam against it, until that dam comes down, you're not going to make any real progress. You're going to believe in weird stuff. And I've seen people who, they may believe in UFOs, but they won't believe in Bigfoot. What's the difference? Why not believe in Bigfoot? Well, Bigfoot doesn't seem plausible to me. You can always come up with an excuse, and however that gets there, there's smarter people who probably could explain, I'm hoping I'm explaining it well enough. It'll never surprise me that a person would believe in ghosts, but they may be an atheist. They don't, they seem kind of rational until this point. That does not surprise me. I'm more worried about those where anything rational doesn't make sense to them. Those, I think, it's where the real problem is. I'm fine with, as long as there's no harm involved. If you want to believe in fortune tellers and you want to spend $20 a week, that's okay. But when these fortune tellers take you for millions, that's not okay. That's kind of my attitude, because I'm not going to change everyone's mind. There's no way to do that. And even all the rational things you can say is not going to change their minds until you find maybe that one key that would say the answer they're really looking for. That may be it.
Yeah, well, I don't really give a damn what answer they're looking for, because I really only care about what's actually out there, what's real, what the best solutions are. You can actually take, the vague scientific principles and apply them to everything, because all they really say is start with a hypothesis, test that hypothesis, see what works out best, what evidence can you find, and actually come to a well-reasoned, well-rationed conclusion based on everything around you, and continuously test that conclusion over and over and over as you learn more. And that's where you're going to get better alternatives. That's why I'm a conservative, because I've done that. But I've never seen a damn liberal ever prove to me that they've ever done that. All they do, their entire position is based on emotion. Emotion, emotion, emotion. Feeling this, feeling that. I want to feel bad for these people, so I want to help them, and all this other stuff. They've never actually sat down and said, well, let's see, is the liberal model, is that actually a self-sustaining, realistic model for economics in the real world? Is it? Is it something that you can just let go and it will run by itself forever? No, of course not. It's a ridiculous concept. Obviously, it's going to fall apart if all you're doing is sitting around borrowing money and giving money out to the poor who are not putting any money into the system. Eventually, you're going to run out of money, because someday the people you're borrowing money from, China's going to stop giving us money. And then what the fuck are you going to do? But it's so utterly unrealistic that these people can't sit down and say, all right, I'm a rational person. My rationality has the ability, my higher brain functions have the ability to override my emotional feelings. All right, emotions are great for some things, but there is probably not one damn thing on this planet where emotions are the best solution. They just aren't. Sorry. If you have a brain, frickin' use it. But there's just so many people who are so utterly and totally unskeptical about virtually anything. All they care about is, does this make me feel good? Does this irrational woo give me an emotional hard-on? Whatever you want to say. And, you know, you need to beat rationality into the heads of these people. If we start training people from a very, very young age, if every single kid in grade school is learning critical thinking, logic, reason, not what to think, but how to think, you know, we wouldn't have such a fucked up planet right now, because you wouldn't have so many people being religious and bringing all that violence with them. You wouldn't have so many people being liberal. They'd realize, like, holy shit, in any political system, we all have to put in about what we get out so that the system has an equilibrium. But no, they can't see that. And it's just, it pisses me off no end to watch these people go, well, hey, I'm just a rational atheist that has no rational thought about any subject that falls outside of religion. Fuck you people. You need some help.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I would agree with that. I do know that, even with the liberal, again, this book, I mean, I might have to reread this again too, but it was interesting that politically how we construct, and again, it's a mental construct. It's not anything physical. There's nothing physical involved. I mean, emotion. You used emotion. There's nothing physical. It's a construct of how we view the world.
But yeah, everything is a construct. That's the thing. Every single thing that goes on in our head is a construct, even our view of reality. It's just taking inputs from our senses and creating this imaginary picture in our head of what we think is going on. And it may not be actually accurate to what is going on in the real world.
You know, these liberals, generally, they score high in empathy tests. There's a lot of, empathy. There's like 4 things that they're really strong in. Conservatives are actually only strong in 2 areas. I wish I could remember those, but it really does sound like that there is there's a common part between, liberal and conservative. The thing is that when they add these extra aspects, I gotta try to remember what he was calling them, cause it's things like empathy. It's like, humanitarian, there's things like, because like for the conservative, now this guy's also, I think where I'm having a little trouble is because he was melding in the religion and political, because it's, because he's looking at it that the conservatives tend to be more religious than liberals who are more atheist. And I disagree with that because I'm a conservative atheist, and I think it's because I do have compassion for other people. I do have empathy for other people. And I think that's the bridge that I have. I hate seeing the religious, what they do to innocent people who done nothing other than they were born in a country where their religion is a minority, so the majority is going to kill them, or you're born with a deficiency in skin pigment, so you're an albino, so they cut your arms off to make witch doctor medicine, or, whatever. I see what religion does, so I have this real, an empathy toward, so that I think that I'm I don't know about you, but it does sound like we're more liberal than conservative. I mean, we have. Well, no,
we are conservative. We are what conservative would be if you stripped all the religion out.
Right. Because that's the thing. It's the liberalism that has, whatever. But this is just from one book, and I'm going to try to stop referring back to it because I'm doing a very, very bad job of that.
Yeah, and that's one place where I'm going to disagree with you. Liberals have empathy, all right, which means they're trying to put themselves in the place of other people and feel their pain. That's not useful. I have sympathy. I understand that people are in pain. I understand their position, but I'm not trying to put myself into that and react as those people do. I am trying to take a rational stance and a rational position towards how do we solve the problem. You can never really solve a problem and not have anybody be hurt or unhappy or whatever. That's kind of what the liberals want to do. They want to create this utopia where everybody is perfect and wonderful and happy and, running around singing Kumbaya. That's not realistic. What we have to do is we have to create a system whereby the vast majority of people are served best, and we have expectations that the people on the low end are going to come up to the expectations, not with the liberal system where we expect the expectations to go down to the lowest common denominator. So I don't really have that kind of empathic feeling towards people. I understand you're hurt. I understand you have problems. Let's solve those problems rationally.
I do believe that. I mean, and you're right, where everything's driven by emotion. I think it's a very dangerous thing. I mean, unfortunately, women or at least the women I know or have known, much of their lives have been, and they destroy themselves because everything's run on emotion. They're emotional. I don't know if it's because they are emotional creatures, but they seem to literally destroy themselves through their emotion for whatever reason, alcoholism, pills, whatever the thing is. And
well, I think at least some of that comes from cultural indoctrination. I mean, we raise them to be that way. We teach them that's how they're supposed to be.
Right.
And, that's a cultural problem that we need to fix.
Right. But it's, yeah. And I was hoping not to do this him and hawing because when I see people who, where I think they seem rational until they
open their mouths.
Yeah. That's a very, yeah. I wanted to say that when the particular subject they open their mouth on, that's probably more like it because they do seem like, they seem to be together. They do, working with engineers. These guys, they're scientists almost. They're, a lot of the stuff that they learn, the courses, you got to understand mechanics, thermodynamics, all the things that goes into engineering. But then they'll believe in, like a weird conspiracy theory. When these guys talk about, big pharma, I would love to know what really big pharma is. That's one of these things I've been trying to figure out. What the fuck is a big pharma? I'm trying to understand that. And, but they're talking about stuff like, I'm kind of looking at him like, did you really say that? You worked in engineering. You see how these companies, these big corporations run, and you're wondering why drugs are, the pricing on this stuff is the way it is. I can do a whole show on how pharmaceutical companies operate. I've seen them operate. I know what goes in, and I'm thinking about half of the argument is all bullshit. Really.
Oh, of course it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Right. So, but I'm like, this guy is talking about this thing. I'm like, oh my God, he's buying into this conspiracy. And other than the fact that he's an engineer, he's got a real strong science background. He's very, very, to me, he's smart. He's really, this guy knows all sorts of stuff. But when he started talking about, the pharmaceutical stuff, I'm like, oh my God, it didn't surprise me that, I wasn't really expecting it from him, but it came from him, and I was like, so he's still proving my point that you can seem rational, you can look rational, you can behave rational, but there's always going to be that one thing. And you know what? It could even be if he was if someone else, if a different person was standing next to him, they probably wouldn't even noticed. They would think that even the big pharma thing was rational. So there is our point of view is going to skew how we perceive what's being told to us. Like I said, I think, I'm not a big fan of libertarians. I don't like a lot of the stuff they talk about. So when you told them about that, and then you talk about the guy with the ghost, it's like, it didn't surprise me because there are people like that. But if I was libertarian, I probably would have believed, it says, yeah, right on, dude. Or, if I have the same thing with the guy with the ghost, I go, yeah, I had the same experience. It could very well have been totally different. Fortunately, for me, and just so you realize, I don't believe that there's ghosts. So there's got to be, I would probably say, are you sure? it was one of those, could have been the wind, could have been, what really did happen? Can you explain what happened? And then if he turns into a douchebag over it, then yeah, fine, fuck you. And the same with the libertarian, it's like, well, why do you believe that this is self-evident? Why do you think this is real? And, if you can't, well, how did you come to this conclusion? Who told you? How did you, whatever.
Yeah, in both cases, it's just, well, I just happen to know that. That's how this stuff runs.
Right. Yeah. And that's probably more likely, yeah, that's the way it's going to fall apart. But a lot of this stuff, like, especially when you're dealing with politics and religion and that mental construct, I wish I knew more about what we do construct into our heads. And it could be that we will construct. And it could be, maybe it's just pareidolia. We see something and we're like, oh, wow, that's a Jesus in a waffle or, pancake. Maybe there is something to this or, whatever. How do we?
Yeah, but that's really the thing is, and that's a perfect example right there with the pareidolia, is rational people will look and they will understand that the brain constructs certain things in a certain way, and they will say, hey, that might look like Jesus on a waffle. But we know, because we're thinking in our heads, that we're reasoning and being rational, that it's not really Jesus on a waffle. I don't buy that the people who are just like going, holy shit, it's Jesus on a waffle, have the slightest rational thought going through their head at the time. And we have the ability, clearly, to realize that it's just a trick of the mind. So everybody really ought to be able to say, hey, I understand that this is a trick of the mind, and we move on from there. Everyone ought to be able to test their own experiences. It's the people who just completely throw all that out the window and say, hey, I'm going to believe whatever weird crap pops into my head because it just makes me feel good to think it's there. Those people are idiots. And I'm sick of idiots.
Yeah, I will agree with that. There's certainly people who, once it's in their heads, you will not jar anything loose, because there's probably nothing up there to jar anyhow. But I'm kind of glad I don't get into too many dealings. Last weekend I did my life show, and we did have a truther on there. And it seemed pretty, actually seemed pretty cool, though it was always the same slogans. You could tell that this guy, I won't give out a name, but,
they could just go look.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like, it's the same slogans I see all the times. 9/11 was an inside job, and then we pressed them online, on air. We asked them, who is this government bureaucracy that was responsible for this? Not a word.
Oh yeah, they don't know.
Yeah, it's somebody, that's, I'll compare, like Alex Jones. That's probably where he got it from, or someone like that. But, you can compare that to the pastors or the presidential candidates, Michelle Bachmann. I really wish that what she said was real. But,
yeah. Well, just today I was having a debate just before the show on Twitter, and I know that's a bad idea, but I was talking to this person, and they were saying that Jesus was real. And I said, how do you know? And we just kept going through this. It was, all the historians believe that Jesus is real. No, actually, name me one credible secular historian who believes that Jesus, as he was described in the Bible, actually exists. Silence. But they just keep coming back to the same idea, going, Jesus is real, Jesus is real, Jesus is real, because they don't really know what to say when you call them on their bullshit. And it's the same thing with the conspiracy theorists, and it's the same thing with the liberals, and it's the same thing with the libertarians. They've got these ideas that are emotionally comforting in their head that they want to believe are true, and whether or not they can actually justify any of these beliefs, they don't care. It doesn't matter to them.
Yeah, well, definitely. I would, see, if I was in that argument, I'd like to believe that there may have been a Jesus, but not this Bible Jesus. I'm talking, there may have been somebody, Jesus of Nazareth or whatever, may have been born in Bethlehem, whatever. But miracles, resurrecting from the dead, no. I would have no problem with a Jesus who was a rabbi who kind of bucked the system and got into trouble. I can believe that. I can't believe that this guy was crucified, buried, rose 3 days later, walked on water, bread to, loaves and fishes, the water to wine, things like that. No. So, now I don't have any proof of that. I don't think there is any proof of even that. But that would be my argument. I mean, and I'm hoping that is a cogent argument, or at least a discussion that kind of makes sense. I mean, am I right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'd have no problem whatsoever believing something like that. But then again,
right,
that has nothing to do with the religious argument. Right. If you're just going to say that there was some guy, and we know at the time of Jesus, that there was a rabbi on every corner, there was a Messiah everywhere claiming to be there to save everybody from the Romans. We know that happened. So I have no problem thinking that there was just some itinerant Jewish rabbi wandering around Israel, and, they took him and then they built him up after his death and put him in a Bible. But that proves nothing compared, what the religious want to prove. Well, they want all the miracles and all the magic and all the hand waving and all that.
But to finish my argument, because, I just wanted to make sure that I was making a good statement, because that's what you need to do. If you're going to argue, if I'm going to argue with Cephas, if I'm going to argue over the existence of Jesus, that's the type of stuff I would try to present. Whether you agree with me or not,
but it doesn't really mean anything, because that's not the Jesus in the Bible.
Right.
That's like saying you looked in the London phone book and found a listing for Harry Potter, and somehow that proves the existence of Hogwarts. It doesn't.
And, I've got a Jesus who makes my tacos. It's that same thing.
I used to literally have a Jesus who did my lawn, but he doesn't work there anymore.
But that's what we would expect. You would want somebody to say, or at least, I would have more respect for someone who spent some time thinking about it instead of just spouting out, well, it's in the Bible, it's gotta be true. The Ken Ham, it's in the book. Read it,
Read it. It's a ridiculous book.
Right.
Fuck you.
Right. That's why I can't respect Ken Ham. Now, if Ken Ham said something like, well, yeah, we're looking at this creation story, and so we went out looking for evidence, and we found this, we found this, and we found this. What do you think? I might have more respect for Ken Ham instead of him saying, this is the one word, the word of God. Eat it. Suck it, dude. This is it. That's his attitude. It's like, you can't respect that. And really, if you're going to argue with anybody, especially Cephas, for our listeners out there, bring some good points. I'm not that big on debating. I don't really want to, but if you can bring some really strong points, where I have to think, that's what we want. And you may not change our minds, but at least you're getting us to think. And that would be a plus. But definitely, you're going to have to bring your A game, and you're going to have to bring, real facts. None of this.
Right.
None of this.
Right.
Well, I've been picking on Leviticus, but, Leviticus such and such says this. No, that's not proof. I want bones. I want a actual site. I want this. I want to, I
would settle for somebody who just actually presented the argument rationally, and who said, okay, here is my reasoning point A, B, C, D, E, not going, I have faith that this is true and nothing you're going to say is going to make me change my mind. That's not a reasonable, rational argument. I'm sorry. That means you need to sit down, you need to say, well, here's why I think the Bible is factually true. We're going to start with Genesis. I'm going to show you exactly why I think everything in Genesis happened, or whatever parts of Genesis you happen to think happened, since you're going to pick and choose. And I'm going to present archaeological evidence, and I'm going to present all this other stuff. Here's how I came to the conclusion that this was actually true. And then I can sit there and pick it apart and say, well, how do you justify X, and how do you justify Y, and why do you think this and that and the other? But nobody does that. Nobody does that. And they don't do it in religion. They don't do it in politics. They don't do it in social justice. They don't do it in any of these things. They just say, this makes me feel good, therefore it must be true.
My book says
fuck you,
this,
people. Yeah. My emotions say this. Well, I don't care about your book, and I don't care about your emotions. I care about what you can actually demonstrate. And if you can't demonstrate it, you failed. And that's about all I got to say.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I totally agree with that. Yeah. Prove it, bitches.
That's it. All right, so we should go ahead and close up for the week, I think.
I think so.
Well, we made it through another show. We have to go get our walkers and boogie out of here, so hopefully you can make it through until next week. We're all over the place. It's amazing that such old folks can move as fast as we do, and we'll be back in 7 short days with another show. Do all the stuff we normally ask you to do. I'd mention it all, but my memory's going. So until next week, adios, and remember something.
Something, yeah.
Damn.
I'm trying to remember.
Damn. I don't remember. All right.
Good night.
Bye, everybody. You've been listening to the Bitchspot Report podcast with your hosts, Cephas and Mike. You can follow us on Twitter respectively at Bitchspot1 or at JDRipper1962. Please visit our website at report.jdragononline.com. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/The B-Spot Report. We're also on Google+, iTunes, and YouTube. Those links are at our website. We'd love to hear from you. You can reach us via email at report@jdragononline.com. Comments, ideas, and suggestions are always welcome. We'll be back next week with another fun and fact-filled episode. Please tune in again.